There we go.
In HD 740.
And we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. Oh, tonight we got a great show for y'all. We are going to be doing some more great stories tonight, like always, with my co-host, David Null, Hawkeye Two Feathers. And thank you for coming and joining me tonight.
Good evening, Robert, and good evening, everybody. And we always welcome you with the love and the honor of the infinite creator. And we always hope that you're doing as best as possible. And we're always sending prayers out, hoping that you can do better tomorrow. So welcome and thank you for showing up. We always appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And we hope you learned something too.
Yeah, you sit back, enjoy some of the stories, some of the stuff that we got going on. Sometimes it's interesting and sometimes it might be boring, but hey, all in all, it's good fun. We're not here to bash people. We're not here to make fun of things. We're here to find out the history, listen to some good old tales told by real people back in the day.
I don't know, Robert. I would say that we pretty much bashed the white man.
Yeah, I tell you, either way, it's bad. I mean,
On the Spanish and the Portuguese.
They're terrible sometimes,
Considering what they did to the native peoples of the Americas, yeah, but I think we pretty much over the last this is number 64.
Yes, 64, my friend.
Wow.
64.
We've been going at it, but no, we've been here to try to tell the truth because Robert's got several old books. That last one was what, 1887?
Oh yeah, the 1881 was the one I showed you earlier.
Yeah, 1881. So some of these books, it's not somebody coming up with something now. These are stories and things that come out of books that were written a century and a half ago or more.
Yeah, this book I'm going to read out of the night was printed copyright 1904, and if I can pick it up without breaking it because it's just falling apart, it's Indian Wars and Famous Frontiersmen. So we're going to get a look tonight. We're going to look at it from the white man's perspective.
But I want to follow up on, because these books are so old, okay, this is a perspective from 150 years ago. This isn't somebody's perspective nowadays, okay? Just to let you know.
Yeah, like some of those ones I had, the history book was from the 1840s or 1850s. I mean, in 1840, the Indians were still living in teepees out on the plains, fighting the white man, trapping and stuff like that. These books were written when the West was still wild.
Well, I mean, even the East was still wild at that time in the 1840s.
Yeah.
There were Indian wars all along the Appalachians, and that was when they were trying to get rid of the Cherokee and everything. So, but anyway, that's the part of this. The stories and histories that we're talking about are from old books. So just to let you know.
Well, and it is interesting to see their perspective because at the time when you're living in it, it's just like if we were writing a book today, what's our perspective of what's going on? Some guy was talking about that with, like, say, the perspective of a war. We're about ready to maybe go into World War III if we're not already in it.
Yeah, we're already in it, but yeah.
Yeah. So with that perspective, you're watching it unfold right in front of your eyes. But a lot of, most people aren't calling it a world war yet. I mean, do you think are you calling it a world war?
Well, kind of underlying, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But you don't know exactly because it's like, well, I haven't seen any nuclear bombs fall, and I haven't really seen people fighting in the streets yet. So,
It's a
you're kind
different
of,
kind of war. I mean, there's a war on truth. There's a war for our health, with all the lies that have been told. There are wars on so many fronts,
yeah,
I,
yeah.
I mean, it to try to keep, poverty folks in poverty, and it just, it's insanity. And in a lot of ways we are in a war. It just doesn't
Mhm.
look like the last wars we've seen.
Yeah.
But the same part of that, though, how many billions of dollars have we sent to the Ukraine, and how many weapons have we sent? And now they're bringing their soldiers over here to train. So if we ain't involved in this, you
Yes.
know,
We're
so but
totally
anyway,
involved.
you know,
Uh,
just
but
just
but
just
that's
saying.
but that's the whole thing. We're in the war, but we won't really call it World War III until, we're like midway in, and or maybe done with it. Because like even when the Civil War happened, did they say, oh my gosh, this is the beginning of the Civil War? Did
Right.
they?
Nope.
They called it some kind of a conflict. I forget. I was reading or I bit it on a book where it was written in those years, and they really didn't call it, oh, this is the Civil War, until after the Civil War was over. And before that it was like the rebellion or something like
It
that
was
they
the
were
war
going.
between the states.
Yeah, but they didn't even call it that. They called it something else because it was, it was so new. You know what I mean? They were
Yeah,
in it.
war
It
was
was,
a bad name, but
yeah,
it Gettysburg showed that it was truly a war. But anyway,
yeah. So like when those pieces were being fought, at that point, it was, the war between the states or the Civil War or whatever it was. But when it first began, it was just like the rebellion or the, something. I wish I would have remembered what it was. But anyway, the book was called something like that, but it was wrote in like 1861.
yep,
And so but it didn't say, the war between the states or it was called the rebellion, the uprising and the rebellion.
yep.
So somebody who's writing this right at that point in time. And I'm thinking, okay, well, but that was their perspective of it. It was the beginning of it all.
Right. I
And
mean, because if you read about it, after the fact, there were raids by John Brown,
yeah.
and some of his guys, and the old John Brown's body lies a moldering in the grave. They sang
Mhm.
that as like, but during the Civil War, that was one of the battle hymns kind of thing, you know. Um, but so yeah, but at the time that John Brown was running around, did anybody think that there was going to be a war?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there are things that are going on now. Did anybody ever think that there was going to be a war? But anyway, that's enough about war, at least about that. What do you got for us, Robert?
Tonight we're going to talk about the conflict in the Ohio Valley.
Oh, war, huh?
Yes. The
The
conflict,
conflict.
it's the conflict. Well, the thing is that, as this, remember, we've been talking about the coasts, and as the Indians got, pushed back from the settlers, they traded their furs and their, livelihoods and their land and stuff for guns, pots and pans, those conveniences. And then the white man started moving in and the Indians moved out, and that was okay. I guess they battled for a while here and there, and eventually they started moving back. Well, that created conflict with the other Indians, and then the white man started moving westward more, and started selling more of this ground. And as the people pushed out towards the west for the better land, bigger farms, things like that, that pushed the Indians out. And then some of the Indians regretted that because they were like, well, first we sold you some stuff, then we, traded some things and we got some stuff out, but now you're just moving in. You're just, your government is buying up land and just saying, or coming in and saying, here's a section, and you're cutting down all the trees and making roads and just laying claim to the land. I live here on it.
And well, see, the Indians had no concept of what the Louisiana Purchase was all about.
No.
So, but to the United States government, they said it's not that they took the land from the Indians because they bought it from the French. So they didn't look at this as we're taking over your land, where the Indians were like, wait a minute, who said we sold it to the French? I mean, this goes back a bunch of years, but so the Indians are scratching their heads going, hang on a minute, wait a minute, whoa, whoa, whoa. But the Americans, because they purchased it from the French, had every right and every claim to it, and never thought twice about running the Indian off because it was theirs.
That's right. Well, and the thing is too, it's like this. I go to town and I want to buy a rabbit cage, right? So I buy a rabbit cage, but guess what? There's a rabbit in it. I just bought the cage, but the rabbit came along with the cage somehow. And now is the rabbit mine? Do I own the rabbit? Yeah, and that's kind of what happened with the Indians. The government came in and bought the cage, and the rabbits were, the Indians were on the land. And now we bought the Indians too. They just happen to be there. Now it's our job to, run them off or trade and settle the disputes and what have yous and get them off of there. And then you nice settler people, you go out there and risk your lives and you can get this cheap free land and so forth. And these people did. They didn't have much and they went for a better life. And they had to battle these Indians off, and the government kind of knew that.
Yep,
they didn't go out there. They didn't go out there and just run all the Indians off. They just sent the settlers out and said, "Well, just live amongst them, and hopefully they don't kill you, and life will be good."
Well, and I was going to make another point. I forgot.
Yeah,
maybe it'll swing back around.
But here's the problem. Is the first few people that came through, like we talked about the trappers and the mountain men, last week. The first guys that came through, the Indians lived with them. And they said, come on, join us in our village. And, some of them became chiefs and some of them were friends and so forth and so on. But then there was more and there was more and then there was more. And pretty soon they're taking over everything, and it's like saying, if I came to your house and I needed a place to stay, would you throw me out or would you say, well, you can sleep on the couch, right?
Right.
But then now, next thing you know, there's a knock on the door and 4 more members of the Soul Tribe say, hey, I need a place to stay. Can I sleep on your couch? Well, the couch is full. I got the floor. At what point would you get mad and say, I can't have any more people at my house?
Well, that's when the people who moved in say, sorry, but it's not your house anymore. And they throw you out to make room for more of them. So, I mean, but here's something that I wanted to point out. It came back around. In reading these old books and the PDFs that you sent me, everything that was written back then, they all talk about the savages.
Yes, they always call them savages.
So the guys who first came, they might have said these folks are savages, but then they learned, hey, wait a minute, these folks are pretty damned industrious.
Yeah.
They've got different ways and customs, but they seem to be doing pretty well. So the mountain men and so forth adapted more to their ways than they tried to make the Indians adapt to their way. you know, because there was usually only one or two of them and they were at a disadvantage. But then when there were more people, and it seems like when the smart people showed up, the ones that were writing the books, then they were all savages, even though they were industrious. And even though they had everything, you know, if they had an altar or a circle, it was all about so that they could perform their pagan rituals. You know, I mean, it was all about the savages, you know.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
so how can, you know, so the picture of the Native American, whether they were good or bad, to the white settlers, they were all savages.
Yes.
Period. They were all savages. So until, much like the black folk, you know, oh, they're bad and they're worthless, or only, you know, it takes two or three black men to equal one white person. You know, I mean, you know, that kind of thinking. So back then, the savages. So how do you get that mindset out of the white settlers? Well, I bought this piece of land from the government. I bought it. It's not theirs, whether they had been here 2,000 or 3,000 years or not. Didn't matter. They're savages. We're white people. We got God on our side. And that was that.
That's right. And tonight we're going to look at it from kind of their perspective.
I'm sorry, I got a little long-winded.
No, that is so fine. Let's see. So anyway, I want to say hi to everybody before we get going too far and get going. Scotty Boy is in the house. Michelle Can-Am Free, much love to you. Chief Romeldian Olympus, thanks for coming. I haven't seen you in a while, but I seen you last week, and he says something about World War III really started in 2012. It's a war dividing the house for our ascension and our sovereignty of our soul, or something like that. So anyway, we got Susie Q and Elderberry. Susie's busy, but she's listening. Much love to you. We have Isby, who's in the house. Says, hi, everyone. Wonderful evening. Favor and prosperity, peace and happiness, positivity and manifestation within all of us. Big hugs to everyone. Much prosperity and goodwill to you, Isby, because I hopefully you are doing better. Gaza Cav is in the house. He is heading home. He's got a whole week off. Thank goodness. Pearl Jones, Mrs. Delaney Pearl Jones is in the house to join us. I remember she was reading cards for us last week or so, and go check her out on her channel. She puts up some really good spirit things floating around, and you know, it's really cool. Witchy Moon 73 is in the house. Thank you for coming. And Max Vision remote view class. Yes, Max, thank you for coming also. Got to go check out Max's channel, especially on Saturday nights when he does the remote view. Awesome. I did hit that one this week. It's always my first hit that works so well. And I drew it out on a piece of paper and had it there. And I was like, oh, I could see the cliff and the thing. And it looked, yeah, I was right on. The next one, I was way off. But I was tired. I had to go to bed. But you know how it works. Anyway, we're going to start in on this, and we're going to go to some sharing, because, you know, as always, I like to share the screen with some pictures with my words. Like I said, the Indians came, they traded with the settlers, and how nice. Here, I'll trade you some furs and you give me some pots and pans and clothes, and life is good. So what did the white man do? He came and he built a fort. They traded with the Indians, and they mapped out a place called Ohio Valley. And, you know, they talked with the chiefs, and chiefs talking with chiefs. You got to love that part. Built some more forts. Yes, you built a fort, you got the troops, and you're keeping everybody safe. And, of course, the settlers moving in. They packed up their stuff, As you can see, they used the rivers and primitive boats. Remember, the rivers were not dug out and trenched as they are today with the boats we have. So they built crude boats and let the current flow and floated down the river. They put their horses and all their belongings in there. The boats were probably flat bottom. As you can see, there's no stern. They go either way, just a big square with a rudder. No motors, no propellers, no
They were glorified rafts.
Yes, that's good. Yes, a glorified raft. You float down the river and you hope for the best. You got guys pushing with poles so you don't knock into the logs and things and sink your whole boat and lose everything you got.
And they had a lot of mishaps.
Yes, they did. You're taking your life in your own hands.
Because the river is always changing. I don't care what river you're on. You have a little rain, the water comes up, or the water goes down and you run into shoals and rocks. I mean, so it wasn't all glory. They sure took their lives into their own hands when they loaded all their equipment and everything onto those boats.
Yeah, if you look in this picture, you can see grandma sitting on the top on a chair. She's got a dog up there. They got horses in the back and a cow. You got another lady down here taking care of the cow. You got somebody fishing. You got a few other people working the boat. You got another boat way over here doing the same thing. And you got, if you look really hard in the background, you got some teepees in the background. So there's Indians around, and you got some Indians over here in a canoe. So you're out in the wilderness. I mean, peril all along. If you didn't do things right, the Indians get you. Otherwise, the river gets you. There's a lot of things that could get you.
Yeah, a storm could get you. Just, you were in the element. So, yeah, it was tough back in them days.
Yeah. So I'm going to read a little bit out of this book. And this is going to tell a different perspective, people. Tonight, we're going to go from the perspective of a settler. And this is called The Typical Heroine. John Merrill was a white settler in Nelson County, Kentucky. One night, about the time of the last incident, he and his wife had retired to bed. The glow of coals from the fireplace alone illuminated the rude apartment, and a loud tick of an old-fashioned clock measured off the flight of time. While the sleepers dreamed of other days, suddenly the dogs, hang on. I'm losing my place here, people. Sorry. Fashion clock. Suddenly the dogs, without the cabin, set up a furious barking. Mr. Merrill, but half awake, rose to see what was the matter. And he didn't find Santa on the roof either. As he opened the door, he was shot dead, receiving 7 bullets in his body. His wife sprang forward and closed and barred the door, which the Indians at once began to chop down with their tomahawks. A breach was soon effected, but Miss Merrill was of great strength and invincible courage. Her hard life on the frontier had done much to prepare her for this crisis. As the Indians sought to enter the breach, the daring woman, with fearful exertion, successively killed or disabled 4 of the enemy. Foiled in this, the savages climbed on the roof and commenced to descending the chimney. Again, the courage and address of the solitary woman confronted them. Snatching up a feather bed, she flung it on the fire, and in a moment the volumes of a flame and stifling smoke overcame 2 of the Indians, who fell helplessly down into the fire. Seizing an axe, the now widowed woman quickly dispatched them, and then, with a quick side stroke, inflicted a fearful gash upon the head of the last savage, who was again attempting an entrance by the breach. This fellow escaped. The story of the immense strength and valor of the long knife squaw agitated many of the barbarous audience in the wigwams of his tribe. And again, they're talking about the savage. Look at the savages. But, can you imagine the dogs barking? You go to the door and boom, 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 boom. And you look up, you're the wife, you're looking over there and you're saying, oh my gosh, my husband just got shot to death. Now I got to fight off these guys, And so anyway, here, the suffering. Here's one of the suffering. These are short. And here's the savages coming. And here's the thing. The Indians are just getting killed off and they keep coming. They keep coming. Okay, the suffering of Massey Harrison, 200 yards from Reed's blockhouse, which was itself about 25 miles from Pittsburgh, stood in the year 1792, the rude cabin of an Indian fighter named Harrison. At sunrise one morning, while Harrison was absent on a scout, the horn sounded at the blockhouse. Not thinking the bugle blast a danger signal, Miss Harrison fell asleep again. Dreaming of trouble, she awoke to find a huge savage dragging her from the bed by her foot, and the house swarming with Indians. After ransacking the house, they forced her to come along with them. She carried in her arms her infant child and led by the hand her little boy of 5 years. There was yet a third child, 3 years old. For the little fellow, the mother had no hand. To relieve her of her embarrassment, an Indian took him by the feet, whirled him through the air, and brained him against the cabin wall. To relate these details is sickening. The mother fainted at the awful sight. And for this, the murderers had a cure. It deserves the attention of medical men. In her story, the mother describes it. The savages gave me a blow across my head and face and brought me to sight and recollection again. With this delicate attention, the procession marched on. In a few minutes, the path led down a steep hill. The little 5-year-old boy fell. It hurt him. He was but a child. With uplifted voice and face filled with liquid grief, he sought consolation from his mother's heart, which had never failed. As she put forth her hand in gentle caress, such as only a mother can give, her arm was seized and she was jerked back. Instead of a soft maternal touch, an Indian hand seized the little fellow. His crying was stopped forever. The toy which quieted him was a tomahawk. Her babe alone was left to the mother. All day she marched with her captors. At night they spread a blanket on the ground and, tying her hand and foot, said, "Go sleep." 2 Indians lay down on each side of the poor woman. The next day the march was continued. This day she had food. It was a piece of dried venison, about the bulk of an egg. One of the Indians went away for a few hours. In his absence, another savage busied himself with making a small hoop. At first, the captive watched him with a languid curiosity. Then, full of wretchedness, she turned her head to look upward into the waving foliage of the forest and the vast illuminable sky dome. When her eyes fell on the savage again, he had something in his hand. The flash of horror struck recognition flickered in the woman's eyes. It was the scalp of her young boy. The savage was stretching it on the hoop. The second night was passed like the first. Towards the morning, one Indian rose and left the camp. The wakened mother managed to slip loose from her bonds. With a step noiseless as a spirit, she fled with her babe in her arms, on and on, pausing not to look behind, breathless, frantic, over rocks, precipices, thorns, and briars, with bare feet and legs, as she said pathetically, she was a pioneer woman, the wife of a scout. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, she would no longer keep up her flight. She waited. At night, when the North Star appeared, she marked out a course for the next day. Long before sunrise, she was on her way, resting not. It rained all day. She had no food for herself or child, yet she bravely pushed on. At dark, she made a bed of leaves in the forest. The child was hungry. The little creature wept out loud. Fearful of the consequences, writes the mother, I put him to my breast, and he became quiet, and then listened, and distinctly heard footsteps. The ground over which I had traveled was soft, and my footprints had been followed. Greatly alarmed, I took about for a place for safety, and providentially discovered a large tree which had fallen into the top of which I crept. The darkness greatly assisted me and prevented detection. The savage who followed me had heard my cry of my child and came to the very spot where it had cried, and there he halted, put down his gun, and was at time so near that I heard the whipping stick strike against his gun distinctly. My getting it under the tree and sheltering myself from the rain and pressing my boy to my bosom got him warm, and most prudentially he fell asleep and lay very still during that time of extreme danger. All was still and quiet. The savage was listening to hear the cry again. My own heart was the only thing I feared, and that beat was so loud that I was apprehensive it would betray me. After the savage had stood and listened with nearly the stillness of death for 2 hours, the sound of a bell and a cry like that of a night owl, signals which were given to him by his companions, induced him to answer, and after he had given a most horrid yell, he started off to join them. After his retreat, I concluded it unsafe to remain there till morning. But by this time, nature was so nearly exhausted that I found some difficulty in moving. Yet, compelled by necessity, I threw my coat about my child and placed the end between my teeth. And with one arm and my teeth, I carried him, and with the other groped my way between the trees and traveled on, as I supposed, a mile or two, and there sat down at the root of a tree till morning. The night was cold and wet, and thus terminated the 4th day and night difficulties, trials, and dangers. After 2 days more of incredible suffering, an unfortunate woman made her way to a settlement. So changed was she by the 6 days of hardship that her nearest neighbor failed to recognize her. 2 of the females, Sarah Carter and Mary Ann Crozer, took out their thorns from my feet and legs, which Miss Flex Negley stood by and counted to the number of 150, though they were not all extracted at that time. For the next evening, there were many more taken out. The flesh was mangled dreadfully, and the skin and flesh were hanging in pieces on my feet and legs. The wounds were not healed for a considerable time. Some of the thorns went through my feet and came out the top. Thus the pioneers of the Ohio Valley endured for the sake of the hope which was set before them. 40 years they wandered in the wilderness that their children might enter into and possess the land of promise. With honor is due them by the thoughtless thousands who eat the fruit of their toil. Yet the shores of the Ohio contain no monument to their memory. Well, there you go.
It was brutal.
Yeah. I mean, wow. Can you imagine that? I mean, that, and then you wonder, you're there, they just show up and start dragging you and your children out. And if you can't haul your children with you, they just kill them on the spot. I mean, just took that kid and flung him against the wall until he just died. And then the other kid, he's crying. Chop. That's just, I almost hate reading it, but it's kind of, you kind of gotta,
It's gruesome.
Yeah, I mean, no wonder why they call them savages. I mean, and then she's trying to escape and they're hunting her down and she's just bewildered, like, I gotta go. I mean, can you imagine running those miles for 6 days in the wilderness, thorns punching not only in your feet, but through your feet, and in your 150, and that's how many they pulled up the first day. I mean, I just, like I said, it's a different perspective. I guess if I was a white man moving in the area, I would be calling them savages too, because, they just didn't. But then again, think about it from their point of view too. I mean, the white man kind of did the same, but it's like, hey, look at the color of my skin and look at the color of your skin, and I'm an Indian and you're not, or I'm a white man and you're not, kind of thing. Like, you hate me anyway. If I came to your house and asked for food, you'd kill me dead.
Well, it was like I said earlier, the white man considered that, no, this is the United States. I have the right to be here. And the natives are like, no, I'm sorry. So no matter what the white man did, they were the invaders.
Yeah.
From the natives' point of view. And they were right.
They were.
So the natives were right, whether they were savages or not, they were right. These people were infringing on their lifestyle, on their land. And so I'm not saying that it gave them the right to go into a cabin and do that kind of thing. But there are men of different races, not just the natives, who did atrocities as well.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
I can't just blame it on the natives. There could have been a couple of bad dudes that just went around and terrorized people, but just because they were native folk, they were the savages, could have been a white man who went around doing stuff. But
anyway.
I
mean, just the psychological punishment on that.
People of all ages.
Yeah, but it only takes that one woman to tell a story like that to make everybody else terrified, because she's coming in and she's showing all the thorns. She's telling the story how they scalped her boy, and she's watching him stretch the scalp out right in front of her. Can you imagine the horror of that? There's my boy, and they just cut his head off, and they're the scalp, and now they're stretching it out in front of me. Psychologically, that's got to mess with you.
Oh yeah.
So
absolutely.
Anyway, we're going to do one more here, and this is the wizard's punishment. And of course, I'll share some pictures because we like pictures anyway. As you can see here, we got a fort, and why don't I have? Oh, there we go. Oh, we got a fort. And there we got Indian fight. And look at you got those tomahawk things. They got that club thing with the hatchet on. You can see that. And tomahawks for hand-to-hand fighting. This guy's got a knife, and this one's got one of those clubs. And that had to hurt too, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it was made out of wood. It wasn't a metal sword. It was made out, they were wooden clubs.
Well, you get struck with a hickory club or something, that's gonna hurt just
Oh,
as
it's
much
gonna hurt. Oh, yeah.
It'll knock you clean out. Hey,
I
here's
mean, it's like carrying a baseball bat into a fight.
yes. Here's a crude picture of a fort. Here's a Indian fight. There we go. And the natives and some of the rangers. I forget who these people were, but the native dress, the frontiersmen. The Indians. I mean, just looking at the scouts, how white man dresses, and then how an Indian, they were very similar. But once they started painting their heads and their hairstyles and the feathers and the bright colors and like their nose rings and the ear things, that's enough to scare somebody, especially if you ain't used to that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? And here you go. Of course, the Indians tended to buddy up with the other side that would give them weapons. As you notice, these guys here, they got swords and they got guns, and they're wearing British coats. And the British did this in order to they would give the Indians weapons and then let them run after the American forces. It's like hiring a bunch of mercenaries. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the Indians would fight other Indians. Hey, he's my enemy, I'm going to fight him. But little did they know that once you conquered all your enemies, your friend that you befriended is going to conquer you.
That's a Scotsman there.
Yeah, these are all Scotsmen.
Yeah, there's another. Yeah, in their kilts.
British and Scots. And I thought you'd enjoy these pictures.
And them French.
But yeah, and here you got the white man comes along and he's all dressed, and you got the native, the savage, and he's half naked. I mean, most people would be, you've seen people without clothes, you'd say he's a savage. Why do you have any clothes on? Right?
Yep.
Gotta be a savage. Fighting at the fort. Or fighting. I mean, literally you're battling. You gotta remember, these muskets, you couldn't shoot very far with accuracy. So these guys really had to get up pretty close.
And it took you a couple of minutes to reload the thing.
Yes.
You had to get your powder out, you had to get the wadding out, you had to get your rod out, and then you had to get the ball out, and you had to, I'm sure folks have seen movies of folks doing that, but in reality, so when you're in the middle of a pitched battle and you got to stop and reload like that, you're ducking and hollering and fighting and dropping powder everywhere, and you drop the ball on the ground, got to find another one in your pouch. I mean,
yeah,
you're under heavy fire. So,
yeah.
But anyway.
And you can notice from this picture, the Indians are up in the tree line, they're firing. You can see from the smoke. And then you got the troops coming up the hill. And what a fiery mess that is. I mean, you're firing at an enemy that's got trees to hide behind that you can't see. And you're battling your way through, you're out in the open. It's not a good situation. But anyway, we're going to continue on with this guy. Then we're going to talk about the wizards. This is called the wizard's punishment. In Early in this century, a strange Indian appeared in a white settlement near what is now the capital of Ohio. He seemed to be continually apprehensive of some danger, but otherwise acted as any Indian of better sort. Gradually, the white men won his confidence. He explained while he was always so watchful to see no pursuer was after him. He was a Wyandot. His tribe had taken up a notion that he was guilty of witchcraft. His life was in peril. He fled to the wilderness. For a long time he had eluded them, but his tribe ceased not to pursue him with undying magnanimity or whatever. He was growing old. He needed a more settled habitation as he advanced in his years. He had thrown himself upon the mercy of the white man, his father's foe. You notice how it's his father's foe. If the enemy of my enemy is my friend, kind of thing. One June morning, he was sitting in a chair in his cabin. Suddenly, a band of Wyandots entered the room. They had tracked him to his retreat. He made no effort to escape. With calm disdain and unruffled courage, he submitted quietly to be bound and carried away. The settlers asked his captors what it meant. With dark and big-toed looks, they replied that he was a bad Indian, and he had caused horses, dogs, and even people of his own tribe to fall sick. For this crime, he must die. The settlers labored to convince them that their captive had no power to achieve such wonders. To this, the savages obstinately shook their heads. The white men exhausted their powers of argument and persuasion. The victim could only be saved by forces of arms. This was out of the question. The band of savages greatly outnumbered the population of the settlement. Finding that he must die, the suspected wizard asked that he might be arrayed in his finest clothes and ornaments. Generously decked out in his gay trappings of silver, gold, and scarlet cloth, he took his place in a ring and asked that a paper which he had handed them be read out loud, and then fastened to a tree. It was done. The document was only a recommendation from a prominent settler. With much emotion, he bade farewell to his white friends and then obediently took up his march to a lonely wood, chanting the Indian death song. Arriving at his destination, he was made to kneel before a shallow grave. His relentless executioners formed a circle about him. There was a pause. Then a young warrior stepped briskly forward. His uplifted tomahawk glittered for a moment in the light of the afternoon sun, then sank to the heft in the skull of his victim. Herein the Indian haters may find a text. The barbarianism, the cruelty, the bloodthirstiness, the ignorance, and the superstition of the savage. Softly, friend, if you please, yonder on the stormy New England coast sits an old town with its single street and its queer old houses, which look as if they were haunted. In the town's museum, you may see the wooden pegs which witnesses swore had been suddenly and mysteriously thrust into the flesh of tender babes without any visible agency, except it was through the black art of the culprit at the bar. Nearby its Witches' Hill, where innocent women and men were executed under sentences rendered on just testimony. Not ignorant savages were the witnesses, the jury, the judge, the proving crowd, but the intelligent, educated New England Puritans from whom it is said to flow the best blood in America. When we remember the reign of superstition in Salem, when we open to the black pages of the witchcraft persecutions, let us withhold our whatever from the wretched Indians. So there we go. You know, we talk a lot about, or so the the Indians killed this guy because he was a witch, or they were superstitious of it, right?
Right.
And people take offense to it all, but the big part is just miles away, in Salem, they were doing the same thing white people to white people.
Right.
So were the savages really that different? Except that they were savage looking, and
Yeah.
instead of hanging the witch, they chopped them in the head with their tomahawk. I guess. Okay.
Well, which is worse? I mean, to be hanged or burned at the stake, or
Yeah, chopped in the head. Well, Max Vision's got to go. Good night, Max. Have a good one. See you Saturday probably, or whenever. Anyway, Max G's in the house. Nina the Mystic. Don't forget to join us on Thursday night. Nina and me have a show coming up, and we're going to be talking about some good your subconsciousness. Anyway, with all of that, Scratches in the house. Yay. But anyway, like I said, there's a bunch of ones in here. I'm going to get to some of these. There's some cool news stories about the Seminoles, the romance on Red Eagle. Never heard of him. Doom of Crawford. I'm just paging through of it. Let's see. Cruelness of Gertie. Days of Daniel Boone. That should be interesting. Indian Tragedies and Romances. Brady and the Backwoodsman. That should be good too. But like I said, this book is kind of giving you the perspective of a settler. And can you imagine the community of settlers that are there, and that this Indian's living with him, and obviously been living there a while because he had a cabin already, built himself a cabin. I'm too old to be, run around the woods anymore. And then when his his pursuers came, okay, see you later, goodbye. He's gonna die. I guess we can't do anything. There's 100 Indians and there's only 50 of us, and we're not fighting them over that guy. Wow. Anyway, well, I hope you. That was my bit. I got it out of my system. So we got some good stories this week, some new ones out of a different book, huh?
Yeah, a different book. Yeah. I was just checking. This first story is very similar to one, and maybe I've read this story myself, and I'm not sure if we did it, but it's very similar to another story. But anyway, it's still worth it.
Absolutely. Sophia is in the house. Sophia Rasmussen is in the house. Thank you for coming, Max Chi. Thank you for coming. Okay. Isby says, is Hawkeye going to do a show tonight?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Good deal. Always enjoy your shows. I usually can't stay up for them. Sometimes I catch them a little later. Sometimes, I remember the days when you used to be up in the morning and I get up for work and there you are doing the show. I'm like, holy cow.
Yeah, my medicines that I've been taking, it keeps my hours a lot different than it did before. So, I've had to learn how to get used to this new regimen of pills and everything, but I'm still here.
All right.
Just not at 4 a.m, at least not yet.
All right. Yeah. Well, yeah, well, you're getting better, and that's all that counts. Okay, here we go.
I'm
I
not
got it.
getting worse. That's the
Well, that is good. That is okay. I got it up, and we're good to go. Yeah, get rid of
Indian folk tales. And this particular book, just to give us a little bit of back history, was written in copyright is 1911. Okay, so it's at least a century old. The book itself is,
yeah.
the copyright is at least a century old. So
You can see it right there. Copyright 1911. Wow. Entered in the Stationers Hall, London. Cool. A lot of good stories here. Everybody, if you want this PDF of this book, let me know. Send me an email and I will send it to you and you can have it and read it yourself if you enjoy this. Just let me know. But anyway, there's a lot of good stories in here. Look at that. The totem of the son of Yelp, the chief of the healing waters, the moon maiden. I want
the
to hear the
man
moon.
who loved what? Unsee.
There's a lot of good ones.
Okay, these glasses will work. All right. I was looking
Absolutely.
for my other glasses. All right. Let me get a little bit of coffee and we'll start right out. Now, this is so there's a first part and a second part to this story. So the first part of the story is about the slayer of spotted calf, but then there's the second part.
Okay, cool.
So anyway, just to give you a little bit of heads up about that. All right. The slayer of the spotted calf. There was once an old woman who was very poor. All of her children were dead, and she had but one grandchild, a young boy. These two dwelt apart from the rest of the tribe, and as they had almost nothing of their own, they lived upon the scraps and the leavings of others. Sometimes mocking tongues would jibe at them, saying, "Here are those whose moccasins and robes are the rags which we have thrown away." At these words, the eyes of Katit, the boy, would flash with rage, but his grandmother would droop her head in silence. One day, the tribe moved to another and a better place where there was much game, and Katit and his grandmother followed the trail far in the rear. "What is that?" asked the old woman, pointing to something which was lying among the bushes on the side of the trail. "I will see," said Katit, and he went to it. It was an old brown horse, blind in one eye, with a sore back and a swollen knee, and it looked pitifully at Katit. The boy's heart was warm, and he felt sorry for the beast. "Your master has left you because you are poor," he said, "but I know that to be poor and to have no friends is hard. Come with me and I will be your friend." Then the horse got up and put its nose in Katit's hand and laid its head upon his shoulder. And Katit gave it a wisp of grass to eat, and the horse ate gratefully. Then Katit patted the horse gently, and it whinnied. And when the boy strode on after the trail, the brown horse followed close behind him. When Katit reached the camp where the tribe had stopped, he found a great stir among the warriors and the young men. "What is it?" he asked of a young chief who had always been good-natured to him. "Buffaloes," he answered. "A herd of buffaloes and a spotted calf. Bear Chief has said that whoever kills the spotted calf may have his daughter to be wife." The boy saw that all the young men were catching their fastest ponies and making ready to attack the buffalo herd, which was now 3 or 4 miles away. He wanted to see the hunt, and so he mounted his old horse and rode along with the rest. But oh, how the braves laughed. "See Cadet and his fine horse," they shouted, pointing at him. "He will certainly win Bear Chief's daughter. That horse will surely overtake the spotted calf." Cadet turned aside, and hot tears gushed from his eyes and scorched his cheeks until they felt like burning coals. But he would not let anyone see. He turned aside with his horse and rode down to the river bank, while all the rest galloped away in pursuit of the herd. He dismounted from his horse and threw himself on the ground. He hid his face in his hands and wept. Then he heard a voice. "Plaster me over with mud," it said. It was a strange voice, and it spoke strange words. Cadet looked up. He gazed all around him, but could see no human being. The horse was standing with drooped head by the riverside. "Plaster me over with mud," the voice repeated impatiently. Cadet sprang up and looked again. On both sides of the stream, into the thicket, up to the blue sky, he looked, but he saw no one. "Tirawa mocks me, or else a spirit speaks," he said sadly. Then the voice came again. "To find a thing, look where it is." And this time, Cadet saw that it was the horse talking. He stood amazed and stared at the talking horse, unable to believe his senses. "Obey me," said the horse. "Take mud and plaster me with it." Cadet, trembling and with haste, did as he was told. Then he mounted the horse. "Watch when the charge upon the buffaloes begins," said the horse. "Have your arrows ready, and I will carry you to the herd." Cadet sat still and upright upon the horse. Far off, he could see the braves upon their fine ponies, all drawn up in a line, and a splendid sight they were as they waited for the word to start. And then the chief cried suddenly, "Lua!" And every brave leaned far over his pony's neck and yelled. The beast fairly flew as they sped over the prairie in pursuit of the game. The brown horse heard too. His feet seemed not to touch the ground, and Cadet felt as though a bird were skimming through the air and carrying him on its back. Before he had time to think, he found himself far ahead of all the others, and a moment later he saw the spotted calf directly before him. Orarish! How swiftly his arrow sped! The spotted calf leaped upward, pierced to the heart. It fell to the ground dead. Quickly, Cadet sprang from the talking horse and, drawing his knife, began to skin the calf. The horse danced about and neighed and did not seem like the same poor beast that he had befriended earlier that day. It could see with both eyes, its legs were strong, and its coat was glossy and bright. Cadet placed the buffalo meat on the horse's back, and over it he threw the spotted robe. Then he led his horse back to camp, while the young men who had seen his prowess looked after him with wonder. One of the braves offered to give him 12 horses for the spotted robe because he wished much to marry the chief's daughter. But Cadet would not listen to him. "You laughed at me," he said. "Now I take my turn." When he reached his grandmother's lodge, she ran out to meet him. "I have brought you a fine store of meat," he said. Take it while I carry the spotted robe to the chief." "How did you get it?" she asked. "I shot the calf with my arrow," he said proudly, and she was glad. Then the boy took the spotted robe to the bear chief, and the chief gave it to his squaw. Cadet did not wait to demand the daughter of the chief. He said to himself, he would never give her to one so poor as I. How could I take the maiden to my wretched lodge? What would she think of the torn skins all tied together with strings of rawhide? Then he went slowly back to his grandmother. He had seen the daughter of the chief, and she was very fair, and he was sad. The winner of Talkingbird. The night after Cadet had taken the spotted robe to Bear Chief's lodge, the talking horse spoke again. "Tomorrow, a war party will come. There will be a great fight. If you will obey me, you may win many scalps and much glory. When the Sioux are before you, ride me into the midst of their band. Seek the head chief and Count Coup. You may then kill him, then ride back. If you do this 4 times, you will count coup on 4 of the Sioux. But do not ride upon the 5th, or you will be sorry." Cadet could scarcely wait for the morrow, and in his dreams he saw the conquered Sioux and his own glory. Everything happened as the talking horse had said. The Sioux shot many arrows at Cadet, but none pierced his skin, and he counted coup on their head chief and on 3 of their warriors. Then Cadet became wild with the battle, for the Sioux and the Pawnee fought until the sun was red in the sky, and the boy felt the joy of killing. He forgot all that the horse had said and charged a 5th time. Alas, an arrow pierced the brown horse, and he fell down dead. Then Cadet's heart was cold within him, and all the joy of battle was gone out of him. He fought his way through the ranks of the Sioux and ran back to the village. And the Sioux, being full of rage, hacked the body of the brown horse to pieces with their hatchets. But the Pawnees at length proved to be stronger than the Sioux. And when the night came, the Sioux gave up the fight and fled. There was great rejoicing in the Pawnee village, and the braves feasted and were glad. But Cadet was sad. He grieved for his horse and went to the field to mourn over him. He gathered up the gory pieces of his friend and laid them all together. Then he mourned upon the hilltop and covered his head with his robe. And as he mourned with heavy heart, lo, the wind came from his home in the far mountains. He came with a rushing sound and had with him his brother Rain. And wind blew a blast long and terrible, and rain fell in torrents even more terribly, and still Cadet mourned. Soon came another sound, and wind passed again, and his rushing became a mighty roar. Then rain came again, and it was as if the sky had opened and let loose all the hidden water. After this, the thunderbird spoke, but still Cadet mourned with hidden face. A 3rd time came wind and rain, and this time hand in hand and terrible was the sound thereof. Then Cadet raised his head and looked to where he had laid the pieces of the brown horse. And as he looked, wind and rain departed beyond the hilltops into the land of the far mountain. And Cadet saw a wonderful thing. He looked upon the pieces he had laid together, and they were in the shape of a horse. And as he looked, lo, they moved, and with wide-eyed fear he saw the shape arise. It was the talking horse. Caditt ran swiftly down the hillside. He flew like an arrow from the bow, but the horse spoke sternly. Where was your promise to obey, O Caditt? See what trouble you have caused. Tirawa has heard my prayer to return to you, but hereafter you must obey. I will obey, said Caditt with deep shame. Tonight I will stay in the thicket of the willows. Outside the camp, said the horse. When morning dawns, come there for me. Caditt returned to his lodge, and when it was morning, he went out to the thicket of willows. The horse was there, and also another superb black horse. He took the black horse with him to the village, but the talking horse remained under the willows by the river. Next day, Caditt returned again to find with the talking horse a white mare, gentle and beautiful. Thus he did for 10 nights, and each morning he found another horse. Then he was rich, and the talking horse said to him, Go now to the chief and say to him, I killed the spotted calf. I am rich in horses. Give me your daughter. And Caditt obeyed. Take her, said the chief. Then no more was Caditt sad, for Talking Bird sat at his hearthstone. And he cared for his grandmother and kept her in his lodge. And when at length the bear chief went to Tirawa, Caditt was made chief in his stead. And many horses Caditt rode, but never the talking horse. It was led beside the young chief wherever he went, and it lived to be very old. And when at last it died, all the people of the tribe mourned for it. How about that for a story? You're on mute.
Yes, I am. No, I'm not. I was gonna say that is a sad story. I was kind of, I thought, oh my gosh, the poor horse. When the horse got killed, I thought, oh, this poor kid. He did all that stuff, and now the horse died. And you know what? And now he misses the horse, and he regrets it. And I didn't think the horse was gonna come back to life, but you know, that's the thing. You know, you get attached to those animals, and you know, you really do.
And you know, and there's the severe torment that he went through sitting on the mountain. I mean, that if you've been on mountain tops when it in a storm, I was out in the Bitterroots one summer when a thunderstorm came through, and I mean that we were, you know, up in the clouds when the thunderstorm was going on. And unless you've had that kind of experience, you know, when the rain and you know, first it was the wind and then the rain, and then the great thunderbird came, which was the thunder. So at first, you know, they just tried to blow him off the hill, and then they came back, you know. But the great thunderbird came, but then was the thunderbird, because when the smoke cleared, he looked down and there was the horse. You know? So interesting. But anyway, so that's from one of those other books, and I did find it, you know, in reading through, I was like, I think there was a similar story where the old woman and her grandson lived on the edge, and they did something, but it's not the same story.
Yeah.
It's similar, only in that him and the grandmother lived on the edge kind of thing. So But that's all you know, that's the similarity of where it stops.
That was a good,
Anyway,
that was a good story. I like that. It
yep.
was really interesting. It had my attention, that's for sure. I hope everybody else enjoyed that. You know, who doesn't like story time? We got Lucky Stone. He's listening too. We got let's see, Michelle Can-Am Free. Yes. And Isby says, I remember a pony following me as a kid. There you go. But anyway, yep. I sure enjoy my horses, and they are like family. You know, see one die is very sad and a sad thing. You know, you get attached to those critters.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
oh, okay. You got a card for us or another story or what you got?
Actually, I did this earlier and 3 cards came up.
All right.
And so instead of doing another story, we're going to do a 3-card spread for whatever that means.
That's right. It must mean something. There's a lot going on, like we were talking about in the beginning. It's the beginning of World War III, if you want to believe it or not. And only time will tell. All I'm going to tell everybody is, don't worry, just be prepared. Don't be scared. You know,
Yep.
things that you should prepare for is food. Your power will probably go off. And you know, things like that. I don't, and if there is some kind of a, you know, bomb or something go off or a missile strike or something, and you're in the midst of it, well, you know, that's the end. You ain't gonna have to worry about anything else. But you know, we are addicted. Yes, my little dog. You want to come up here and say hi to everybody? Come on.
The biggest issue we're going to have is going to be in everything that is controlled by computers.
Yes.
And it's so easy. You know, the airlines recently got disrupted.
Yeah.
And the mayhem that it caused. A couple of days ago, their Windstream, which is our carrier down here in Georgia and some other places, the whole system went down in many locations in Albany and around here and South Carolina and some other places. So, you know, and it was down for pretty much, you know, a good part of it, almost a day, you know, and there ain't nothing you can do. So if I was relying on doing something, or I was going to do a live stream that day, and I was like, yeah, well, there you go. I can't even watch a movie or whatever, you know.
Well,
Oh my God, I had to watch regular, you know, antenna TV, but
well, like I said, electricity is one of those things that a person really is addicted to, you know, and then your internet and your you know, you can go down the line from there, but it's the conveniences. I seen this really cool what was it? It was a short on YouTube. It was a short, right? And I think I mentioned this, maybe I didn't mention this, but I really loved the little short they had. So it was a setting from 1923, and the guy is standing in front of a little store and he's trying to advertise appliances, right? And he's standing there and he's got a refrigerator and he's got a stove and he's got a dishwasher and a washing machine, right? And he's telling everybody, step right up, come on, you know, we're putting out electric lines right to your house. And the guy's like, electric? Well, what do I do with that? And he says, well, you can light up your house. And he says, and now you can rent these items from us. Look at this here beautiful item. It's a refrigerator, and it keeps stuff frozen, you know, in the top half and cold in the bottom half. And then here, ladies, step right up. We got a washing machine. You just put your clothes in here and it swishes them back and forth and they come out clean. He says, and you can rent them from us too. And, you know, then he's going on about all these other conveniences. And the one guy, he's all dressed in cowboy gear, you know, and stuff. And he says, Well, we already have all these things. What do we need this for? And he says, for your convenience. It gives you extra time to do other things. And the guy's like, but if I have to pay to rent all this stuff from you and I have to pay for the electricity, that means I got to work a lot more and I won't have any free time. He says, then you kind of own me. And the guy says, oh no, you'll have a lot more free time, and and blah blah blah. And I just kind of laughed at that because the guy's right. We've traded all our free time for all these conveniences that we have.
Yep. Well,
because of electricity.
One of the things that keeps coming back around in my my spirit's guide yakking at me, chatting at me, is that people need to learn how to adapt.
Yes.
But that's in everyday living anyway. If you're, I'm, being retired, I don't have to be to work and I don't have to hit that schedule. And, so, but I went 60 some years doing it. So I get it. And people have to do that grind every day. You got to go to that job, and every day you got to make commitments, and every day you got to work for the man, and every day you got to pay your taxes and all that. I get it. But at the same time, you still have control over your life up to a point.
Yeah.
And you still have choices that you can make. And you can choose to look at it as a prison, or you can choose to look at it as an opportunity. I mean, it's like back in the day, we're fixing to get some heavy duty rain coming in here in the morning, and about 6 or 8 hours. We had 3 inches of rain the other day, and the river came up 5 feet. So which is good. We needed the rain. But you never know. You're going to have to adapt from one day to the next, So when you look at stuff in for the future, how can you adapt without just making yourself crazy? Whatever the situation. And if you got certain basic bare necessities, then you can be comfortable. If you got a decent amount of candles, if you've got a gas stove, even if it's a Coleman stove, if you've got a certain amount of provisions, and if you've got a mindset that, well, whatever the creator sends my way, we'll make it.
That's right. Get one of those power packs. I see Michelle says, I need electricity for Nate. And that's the thing, if you need electricity for things, then you should get one of those generators, a generator of some sort, especially if it's in the house. Get one of those solar generators where it's like a battery pack and you can charge it up and then have some kind of power for a limited amount of time anyway. At least it's better than nothing.
But there are other ways too. It's like, why do you need the electricity? If it's for light, there are a lot of ways that you can do battery rechargeable kind of LED lights that'll give you plenty of light. You can have I've got all these battery powered things all over my house because the lights go out down here in the country sometimes. And I mean, there might not be a storm or anything, but a car hit a pole and knocked out a line. And so 12 miles, into town, but all the power's knocked out in this whole area for hours, and all you can do is wait. So what do you do in the meantime? You keep your refrigerator closed, and so that, you only get out something that you really, really need. And if whatever you're drinking gets a little lukewarm, then learn how to drink stuff at room temperature. Anyway.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
so there are things that you can do, that will put you almost having electricity, you can fake it.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, It'll probably come back on, but it'll be a while. But like I said, it keeps you in some of the conveniences. So I have a flashlight, have a lantern. I bought a little lantern like this. I thought this was really cool that I could hang up. It's rechargeable, and it's really bright. And look at how little it is. It's just a little dinky thing.
Yeah,
And
and get a couple of those, because sometimes when you least expect it, the one doesn't work.
yeah,
For whatever
and then it
reason,
just hangs up.
it doesn't work. And you go, now what do I do?
Yeah, it's
So
really bright.
always have two. And three don't hurt,
Yeah, well, and that's exactly it. I got some flashlights. I mean, I use these lights all the time for stuff, and they're rechargeable, and I've used them for a long time. But little things like that, and make your life better. But like I said, have food, have a way to cook it. I got maybe if you read your cards, I'll go over and grab my little cook stove thing that I got, and I'll show everybody if my little dog here will get off my lap.
All right. Well, the cards that I pulled tonight, and they were very adamant that I pull 3 cards. And it's interesting in that they're all related to water. The first card is otter. The second card is turtle. And the third card is frog. And I think we pulled frog card recently, but frog will be a reminder of the 3. But anyway, otter's number 8 in the book. And it is woman medicine. And it was right side up. And I had shuffled the cards several times. And so that the cards knew whether or not they needed to be up or down. Anyway, otter, so playful, coquettes by the stream. The medicine of woman, the realized dream. The medicine held by otter is a set of lessons in a female energy. This applies to both men and women, as all of us have female sides. The otter's hide is very often used to make medicine bags for powerful women because it represents balanced female energy. Otter is very caring of its young and will play for hours performing all types of aerobics, acrobatics too. Yeah, it lives on land, but always has its home near water. The elements of earth and water are the female elements. At home in both of these elements, otter is the personification of femininity, long, sleek, and graceful. Otter is the true coquette of the animal world. Otter is always on the move and is very curious. Unlike other animals, otter will not start a fight unless it is attacked first. This joyful little creature is adventuresome and assumes that all other creatures are friendly until proven otherwise. These character traits are the beauty of a balanced female side, the side of ourselves that creates a space for others to enter our lives without preconceptions or suspicions. This is an important sentence. The side of ourselves that creates a space for those to enter our lives without preconceptions or suspicions. So in other words, we should be cautious of other people, but we shouldn't be suspicious of everybody, But anyway, otter teaches us that balanced female energy is not jealous or catty, it is sisterhood, content to enjoy and share the good fortune of others. Now remember, all of us have a female side, so it's not just the women folk, okay? Anchored in the understanding that all accomplishments are worthwhile for the whole tribe. This bears repeating. Anchored in the understanding that all accomplishments are worthwhile for the whole tribe. Otter people express joy for others. It is sisterhood, content to enjoy and share the good fortune of others. So we say thank you for our good fortune, and we say thank you for the good fortune of others. Long ago in tribal law, if a woman were widowed, her sister would offer her own husband to the widow as a lover to keep her from drying up. Now, I don't know many folks that'd be doing that these days, but that's how serious it was in certain tribes. If you've drawn this symbol, Otter may be telling you to become the playful child and to simply allow things to unfold in your life. It may be time to stop your addiction to worrying. Dun, da, 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 that's a good line. It may be time to stop your addiction to worrying. Otter also teaches the importance of not hanging on to material things that would bind you or become a burden. And looking at how you can learn from otter habits, you might look at the joyousness of the receptive side of your nature. Have you given yourself the gift recently? Have you received any messages in your meditations? Become otter and move gently into the river of life. Flow with the waters of the universe. This is the way of a balanced female receptive energy. Honor it. In doing so, you will discover the power of woman. Remember, it's in the female energy is in men also. Do not forget that. Now, the next one is turtle upside down, and it just so happens to be number 10. Let me get something to drink and I'll continue. Turtle is Mother Earth. Turtle, great mother, feed my spirit and clothe my heart, that I may serve you too. In Native American teaching, turtle is the oldest symbol for the planet Earth. It is the personification of goddess energy. Now, we just left woman energy with otter. So interesting, here we are with goddess energy, just saying. And the eternal mother from which our lives evolve. We are born of the womb of the earth, and to her soil our bodies will return. In honoring the earth, we are asked by Turtle to be mindful of the cycle of give and take, to give back to the mother as she has given to us. Turtle has a shell which is similar to the protection that Earth has employed for centuries as her body has been defiled. Mother Earth's protection has come in the form of earth changes, new plant growth, the creation of new land masses by volcanoes, and climate alterations. Like Turtle, you also have shields that protect you from hurt, envy, jealousy, and the unconsciousness of others. Now, this is important, the unconsciousness of others, okay? Some folks will say things or write things or do things, and they just ain't paying attention. The unconsciousness of others. Turtle teaches you through its habit patterns how to use protection. Remember, protection. If you are bothered by the actions or words of others, it is time to go inside yourself and honor your feelings. It doesn't mean you're going to hibernate, doesn't mean you're running from it, just means you need to go inside and be quiet. If you are attacked, it is time to give a warning snap. Now, this is right side up turtle. I'm going to skip around over towards to under the upside down turtle. Pulling the turtle card in the reverse means that Mother Earth is calling you to reconnect in some way. If you have become flippant and forgotten to place waste in its proper place instead of throwing it out your car window, she is calling you. If you have felt alone in your time of need, she is calling you. There are a lot of people who are feeling alone right now. That means Mother Earth is calling you. If you've been struggling financially or have little to eat, or if you have desired a child and see no pregnancy in the future, she is in your medicine. Use it. You are not alone. Remember that. You are not alone. Ever. You are a child of Earth. All acts of pleasure, joy, and abundance are given by the mother of the creative force. Use her energy to aid you, and you will be healed enough to share this energy with others. The idea of a turtle helplessly trying to right itself after it's been flipped upside down can also symbolize the contrary turtle. You are not a victim and you are not helpless. Pay attention. Robert and I were talking about adaptation and World War III, and you are not a victim and you are not helpless. No matter how much it may seem like this in your present condition or situation. To right the ill-dignified turtle, you need only list the things you are grateful for. And from that grateful place in your heart, look for abundance of alternatives that Mother Earth gives. You are not helpless. You are not a victim. No matter how much it may seem like this, reconnect with Mother Earth. Now, so that seems like a really good medicine right there. And now for the third one, it's frog upside down. So we've got a female version, otter, that's in and out of the water. Now we got turtle that, like, you know, and frog is number 38. And it was upside down as well. And so here's cleansing with frog. Sing, frog, sing, call the rains, quench the dryness, cleanse the earth, and then fill me up again. Frog sings the songs that brings the rain and makes the road, the dirt road more bearable, or it makes it slicky and you can't drive on it. Frog medicine is akin to water energy and the east on the medicine wheel. Frog teaches us to honor our tears, for they cleanse the soul. All water rites belong to frog, including all initiations by water. Water prepares and cleanses the body for sacred ceremony. It is the element we understand best in the womb. Frog, like ourselves, is a polywog in the fetal waters and only learns to hop after it experiences the world of fluidity. If frog hopped into the cards you chose today, its rivet may be calling in the cleansing you need. If you were to look at where you are today, would you use any of the following words to describe your condition? Tired, overloaded, harried, frustrated, guilty, itchy, nervous, at a loss, empty, or weakened? If so, take a break and allow yourself to bathe in the waters of frog medicine. This could mean a long, relaxing bath, disconnecting the phone and yelling stop, or taking a deep cleansing breath. Now that's the right side up. Upside down in the contrary. Frog slipped in the mud and is lying on its back. Now, they're just a reference to the turtle lying on its back. Unable to right itself, get ready for more mud in your eye. The contrary position of frog can denote an unwillingness on your part to wipe the mire out of your life. Mud can turn from mire to bog to quicksand if you don't recognize its effect on your present situation. There are some folks who have a little bit of bad luck and they can't seem to get over it. So if it weren't for bad luck, I'd have no luck at all. Gloom, despair, and agony on me. Don't call the the nasties to you. Is someone draining your energy? Are you allowing yourself to ride down the tubes with them? Have you tried to settle somebody else's quarrel and gotten in the line of fire? Stop it. Recognize what it is that is mucking up your lily pond. Swim with frog. Frog's bug eyes can see it all. Dive deeply and then hop to the next lily pad to catch the sun. In this way, you may see exactly what has been draining your energy. At times, all of life's activities can be overwhelming, and everyone occasionally needs a break. Contrary frog can signal one of these moments, but can also portend a time of feeling waterlogged. And feeling waterlogged, you may be dealing with too many emotions or feelings. A lot of folks are feeling that these days. This is to say that the world is just too much with you, or that you have immersed yourself in one idea or activity to the exclusions of all other stuff. In other words, some folks have gone down a rabbit hole and they can't think of nothing else but that particular rabbit hole. If this is the case, break from routine is suggested. Hop to other lily pads or visit another pond for a while. Negativity is drawn to you when you refuse to give yourself the time and space needed to assume a new viewpoint. They want me to repeat this. Negativity is drawn to you. Pay attention, please. When you refuse to give yourself the time and space needed to assume a new viewpoint. What did Turtle say? You need to go inside and maybe like take a little time for yourself. Here's Frog saying you need to go take another viewpoint. Now, I don't know what that means for y'all out there, but pay attention. Frog in the contrary position is an omen that you are courting disaster if you don't stop and smell the lilies, eat some flies, bask in the sun if it's out, and ribbit till the rain comes to refill your spirit. So it ain't all bad. If anything, it's, Turtle's telling you, right yourself. You're not helpless. Don't be a victim. Frog's telling you, don't draw negativity to you, Take a bath. Go play in the water. So 3 water signs tonight. That's just interesting. Well, 2 sure enough water signs and a half and half. But so how's that, Robert?
That was very good. Very good. We got Allie Berry in the house. Thank you for coming. We got Jargo. Gaza says I have 1 solar power torch and a solar power on the roof and a portable solar panel and 2 torches that you can do wind and it charges as you wind it. Oh, well, that's pretty good.
Well, listen, let me give a little hint since that came back up. Go to Home Depot or Lowe's or one of these places. I mean, even the local dollar store sells them. But get a couple of yard lamps that recharge. Because you can stick them in the window, and if your lights go out, you can go out in the yard and snatch them up, and they'll work in the house at night. I mean, and they're recharged. And get the ones that are a little bit more expensive with the spotlight. You can put one of them in the house. Because when the lights went out during the hurricanes, I had those, and it's amazing how much light those things put out.
Oh, absolutely.
And last for hours. So, and they're like $10 a piece.
Mhm.
And I got one that has lasted a whole year, and the batteries are gone, the lights still work, but it's cheaper just to buy a new light, you know. But to the point though, it's down dirt and cheap, and they work in the yard, or you can go, you know, they double. So, but anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, this is what I was talking about, little camp stove we were talking about. It's a
Oh yeah.
portable stove. Yes.
Now, is that propane or is it
This one does both. This one here does both. It's kind of brand new, and it's it's just all I still got the wrapping paper on it. You know, I mean, it's enough to put one pot on, and then it gives you a little hose and stuff to connect, and it comes in this nice case. This one here will do propane and butane. And
yeah.
like I said, it's the ones that do the propane are just the butane. You can get one of those for, you know, 25 bucks. I think this one was like 50 some odd bucks, but it does the propane too.
Yeah,
But
and just remember that, you know, in a pinch, if as long as you can get butane, that's great. But if you can't get
mhm,
butane, which is a lot harder to get than propane, I would suggest get a propane.
yes, yes.
I
Well,
mean,
and
you know,
that's the thing.
just
And if you do just get one that does butane, make sure that you stock up on the butane. The
oh yeah,
cans are like $3 a piece. I know that's what I did. I went and bought tons and tons of those cans at Walmart. Every time I'd go,
buy
I'd
a
stop
case
by.
of them, you know.
Yeah,
I
I'd pick
mean,
up one or two here and one or two there, and pretty soon I got, you know, 10 or 15 of them. But they do last a long time on one can, and you can boil a bunch of water or you can cook some food. And like I said, you can make it through whatever you need to. Or the LP ones, the LP stuff is getting expensive too, but um, you know, at least you got something to cook with for
yeah,
a
expense
limited
isn't
amount of time.
expense isn't the issue when you need something to cook on or whatever. I mean,
Yeah, like I said,
when you
that
say,
thing,
"Oh my God, that cost me $100," but when you need it, you go, "Man, that $100 was dang sure worth it."
yeah, and the thing is when you need it, it's there and it can sit there like this thing can sit in my closet for 20 years and that butane will still be good and, you know, a long time from now. And so will the LP stuff and the little propane tanks.
Yep.
That'll still be good too. And you know, 20 years if I need it, well, and when the power did go off here at the house about a year ago, during that big April storm we had, we lost power here for at least 24 hours. And I had another one of those and we used it for cooking. I cooked food and stuff like that on it, and boil water and what have you. It was really handy to have. It was very nice.
Yep.
You know, it made things not so bad, put it that way,
Well, I
you
have
know.
an overabundance of camping stuff. So I've got an old, I say it's old, I've had it for 30 years, but it's one of the old two burner Coleman stoves
Hmm.
that are it's about this thick and so big.
Yep.
And you hook a little, you know, propane, you know, tank to it, and it'll cook forever. And you can put two decent pots on it. But like you said, I've had the thing for 30 years at least,
Yeah.
and it still works, you know.
Yeah.
And for those, I bought a bunch of those small propane thingies, but I also, and Harbor Freight sells these, not to um, push Harbor Freight, but they've got a gizmo that a tank that attaches to a big LP tank, and you
Hmm.
screw it in, and then you can screw on one of these little tanks and refill it.
Yep.
So if you've
Yes.
got a big tank and for some reason all you got's a camp stove and you can't run you know, a hose to it or whatever, you know, for 15 bucks you can buy this little brass fitting that you can fill up your little ones again. So, but anyway, yeah, there's
Yeah.
lots of ways to survive. And I see a lot of people who are trying to make their whole house 110 volt and everything. And I tell people, listen, do it on the cheap. Get portable, rechargeable devices. For whatever reason, if the whole house goes down, or what do you need 110 for? Anyway,
Mhm.
people need to rethink their needs.
Yes.
I got plenty of light, but everything's on the low end, and my hot water heater is probably the most expensive part because it's electric. But $65 a month this last month, and I'm using my electric heaters. So
Mhm.
for the winter time, $65 a month, you
Yeah.
can do it if
Yeah.
you learn
But
how.
well, exactly. But like it says, if the power goes out, well, there goes the hot water,
Yep,
but then you can boil it on that little stove,
yep.
and a 20-pound cylinder will charge up a lot of those little propane tanks. If you got one or two, you can charge one and use the other one, and you can make do. And you just got to change your attitude and make do. It's like camping in the house, but it can be done and at least make life bearable. That's the big thing. It's like you didn't have any of that stuff, and all of a sudden the power goes out, and you go, well, I got nothing to cook. I got no place to cook. I got no lights. I got one little flashlight and the batteries are dead. Well, I mean, you're going to be miserable. And who wants to do that? Have some candles or something too.
And
Yeah,
scared, and the thing
yeah,
is that with my camping gear, it doesn't matter. Okay, so the lights go out. The biggest thing is going to be a damned inconvenience. But other than that, is my life being threatened? Am I going to? Well, of course it's going to be a little inconvenient. The lights are out, but
yeah,
so are my neighbors,
yeah.
and
But
so's everybody else.
and
It
and,
ain't
and
just
that's the thing,
me.
things like that might be out for a little while, but they tend to come back on, and they probably will. But the big thing is that day or who knows, maybe two, that you might be without power. Have some canned food that's already pre-prepared, and then you just have to warm it up, and it'll make your life feel better.
Yeah,
You
when
know,
you when Hurricane Michael came through like 4 years ago, there were places down here that were without electricity for 10 days. In
hmm
our little neighborhood here, it was 4 days. And
hmm
I didn't open my freezer except to get something out and shut the door. And there was still stuff frozen in my freezer after that, you know.
hmm
And I would I bought those, you know, freeze me things, that you put
Yeah,
in your coolers. And I took some of those out and put it in the cooler, put some drinks in there, kept the refrigerator shut. And there were things in the refrigerator that were still cool.
yeah,
So the idea that, so I survived 4 days with candles and batteries and rechargeable lights in the yard, and where other people had to leave. They had to
yeah,
leave their homes, go find a motel, and, and I didn't have to do that.
yeah, yeah. I
So,
know. I totally get it. I totally get it. I mean, I got a 12-volt refrigerator that I can
that
plug
I
into my
want one.
cigarette lighter, and things like that. And I mean, for camping and what have you. But and not everybody has that stuff. But like it says, you can get I don't know. I might have one here. Yeah, I got one here. I think, went and bought me a small one of these. This one's a pile, a rock pile,
Rock
pails or whatever.
pals.
Rock pals. Yeah, it's a small one, but it does the job. It's got um two plugins, and it's got some USBs, and it's got a little screen. It ain't that big. It does what's this one do? 500 watts. But this would be enough to say like plug in your TV or something so you got something to watch, or maybe your computer to keep you entertained, or plug in your cell phones and recharge them, or you could use your rechargeable light and plug that in. Things like that. It's got a cigarette lighter where you can plug in something there. You know, I mean, it's not going to do a whole lot. It's not going to last forever. But if you charge this up, it probably, and you make do without running everything in the house, it will probably last till the power comes on. And or you can recharge it with your car, you know, you can always plug it in that way too. But the thing is it's safe to have in the house, unlike a generator where, you know, like it says, you could bring it to what you need. It might you know, power something like Michelle Can-Am Free. She says something that she needs some electricity for her young boy. Well, you know, something like that would power whatever equipment she needs for you know, the nighttime or whatever, a little bit, you know, versus plugging in a whole bunch of stuff. So I mean, it's one of those things that could come in really handy. I mean, I use that thing there for like the camping. I can plug in my refrigerator, I can plug in a light, or you know, or something, or maybe even a crock pot, you know, and it'll cook some food, or whatever, you know, because when you're camping, you think realistic, you don't have to replug in a whole lot of things. Maybe charge a battery up on my electric drill or electric something, you know, that I got. But
and there's a lot of folks though, you know, we talk about camping and this and that, and there are a lot of folks who are like, oh yeah, camping, I remember that, and they ain't never been. And you know, so they've got this thing in their head. They might even have a sleeping bag, they might even have a, you know, and they stayed out late one time and went fishing with a friend, but they ain't never really went camping. So for those of us who have spent time in the wilderness kind of thing, many times for me, right? But to the point though, that, you know, camping at the house ain't nothing.
right.
You know, but to other people, it's a really big deal. And y'all need to learn, you know, turn out your lights on purpose and practice with your rechargeable stuff, and practice. I'm not going in the refrigerator. Oh, dang, the lights went out. I'm going to go put the ice cubes or whatever and put them in a little cooler. I'm going to get some drinks and put them in there. And I'm going to keep the refrigerator and the freezer closed because I don't know when the lights are going to come on. And do it all day or all night. Pick a Saturday or whatever and pretend, because that practice will teach you a lot of stuff.
That's right. You can realize how much you use the electricity. But see, like that thing in the summertime, if it was summer out, I might not be able to plug in my air conditioner, but I could plug in a fan, and then that fan would blow on me, and I could stay cool in the summertime. Versus you know, maybe not like an air conditioner, but I would have some air blowing on me for whatever amount of time it could blow. Maybe when trying to get to sleep, and you know, in times like that, sleep could be really important. You know, it's 110 degrees out, and boy, I could really use a fan to get some rest.
Well, when the hurricane came through, it was during dog days, and it was muggy and hot, and that was, of all the things that I had issues with, it was not having a fan. But you know, so one of the things that I do have and did have and still do have are 12 volt, a 12 volt clip-on fan that the truckers buy. You know, that they clip onto their, you know, and they're 12 volt. It saved me that little 12 volt fan. You know, I'm like, thank you, Jesus. You know, I made it run, and even on 6 volts, it still turned. You know, so but they ain't but about 12 or 15 bucks, depending on, you know, Walmart has them in the automotive section, and truck stops that got them, or at least they used to
Yeah.
have them. But to the point though, that's a really cheap thing. And when the lights go out and you need a fan, and also nowadays they have these little pet fans that run off a USB.
Hmm.
And so that's only 3 volts.
Yep.
So if you got a 12-volt system with a converter down to, to 3 volts, that fan will last a long
Long
time.
time. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there are lots of things that you can consider, and lots of ways nowadays, especially where you can get this little thing and that and a blah, 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 and you can get by.
Yes. Well, and you said the key word. It's getting by until everything comes back.
Yeah.
It's not going to be out forever, like you said, 4 days, 10 days, whatever. And that's a what if, but you never know. And if it does, well, you make do. But if you didn't have any of that, that 4 days is going to feel like a month. That 10
And
days
it
is
did.
going to feel
But you
like
know what?
forever.
After the hurricane, you knew that there were thousands, if not millions, other people who were in the same boat as you,
Mhm.
and misery enjoys company, maybe.
Mm.
And so there was some consolation in that, it ain't just me,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
it was like, hey, none of my neighbors, it was the oddest thing for 4 days to not see any lights on anywhere.
Yeah.
In any of the neighborhoods, there were no lights. It was completely dark, and even out here in the country, people got trouble lights and utility lights and nothing. It
Yeah.
was so dark, it was eerie. But
Yeah.
to the point though, the lights did come back on.
Yeah. Well, and see, that's the thing is we're so used to all that light. And then when they go off, it's like, wow, this is what it really looks like.
Yeah, imagine that,
Yeah.
But so anyway, my dear friends, I hope that the messages from otter and turtle and frog, you know, um, you know, we are not victims, we are not helpless, flip yourself over. If folks are getting, too next to you too much, go take a bath, go someplace, go visit another spot, and allow your spirit to air out.
Yeah.
And this kind of sort of going to be the subject for when we shut up here and I go do a live stream.
Oh yeah, and I
Um,
totally
and the
agree with you.
subject is going to be how to listen and learn how to hear your quiet.
That's right. Listen.
You know?
Oh, speaking of listening, here's something that if the world goes to crap, that you could go and get right now while they still have them. You can buy a little Bofang or whatever on eBay or something. They're pretty cheap. You go out and buy yourself one of these little ham radios. Now, unless you
Ooh.
have one of those licenses, you can't talk on it. But it does have a range, 5, 6 miles or whatever it is, and you get 50 million channels on it. And if things ever do go bad, you can listen to that and hear what's going on in the rest of the world
And not only
on the
here,
cheap.
and here's something else too. Don't discount a CB radio.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
ham radios, bounce off of the atmosphere and all that, but a CB radio with even a moderate antenna,
Mhm.
I can pick up channels out here in the country. And speaking of that, I bought a handheld pair of walkie-talkies,
Mhm.
and Midland grade. They're made by Midland,
Yep.
at Walmart on sale for like $65 for the pair. But they got a 25-mile inline. So if you're out in the desert, it's got a range. And I've checked it out here in the country, and I got 12 miles out of it.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is that, they're walkie-talkies. You can talk to somebody else. There are certain channels that are limited, but here's the deal. If the crap hits the fan, who's gonna know?
Yeah, well, that's what they
I
said.
mean,
If
you know,
world
you
goes to emergency,
might not be able to talk to somebody now because of licensing and all that, but when the crap hits the fan, you can talk.
and that's
Talk.
that's the thing. Like I said, I got one of these. This does all the different channels. It's waterproof, it's submersible, it's a Yazoo. Um, it does all three waves or whatever, all three bands or whatever the heck it is. It gets pretty much everything. And I think I paid like $50 for it used, and it works good. It
Yeah.
came with a battery and a charger, and as long as I keep it charged up and stuff, in an emergency, I can turn that on and I could listen to what's going on in the world, get the short wave out of it, get the, maybe what's local, maybe the police or the air or the weather channel or some emergency channel will come on or something, but at least it's something that will be, out in the world that I could maybe communicate with, because it you can communicate with, like you said, in an emergency, you could do that. But in the meantime, you could just listen too.
Yeah, and after the hurricane, that was one of the things that, and I'm glad you brought that radio up because I don't have one that works. I've got all kinds of radios, but at some point they're old and decrepit. But anyway, but that was one thing I didn't have was like, I couldn't tell, especially I was disappointed in our local radio TVs, well, radios especially, because we couldn't get a TV station, they were out too. But who had a TV that worked, so,
Sure.
and the cell phone towers were out. Now, at the time, I didn't have a cell phone, but I just wanted to listen to the radio, and it was hard to find a station, and it was hard to find out what was going on locally. Was the power going to come on in certain areas? Where just whatever. There was no news.
Yes.
So the lights were out and everything for 4 days, and unless I went somewhere and talked to somebody, there was no news whatsoever. We didn't know what was going on. You
Yeah,
could
and
work
that
crews
I think
and
that's the big thing you just mentioned
no news.
is the news. What is going on in the world. I mean, the world could be ending, I mean, there could, like we're talking about now, with talking about World War III kind of thing, you might be getting invaded or something, but you're going to just sit home thinking, well, the power's off. I don't know what's going on. But 100 miles away, the troops are landing and taking over the world, right?
Well, I wasn't worried about the rest of the world because we knew it was a hurricane.
Well,
that turned
yeah,
off
but
the lights, but we didn't know what was going on, in town or the next town. Was Thomasville? Did they have lights? Could you go to? Did they have any stores that were open, or could you buy food? I mean, because when the power went out, our local store here, I bet you they lost $100,000 worth of goods in their freezers.
oh yeah,
Everything was ruined,
everything was ruined.
and it took weeks before we could get anything back in those coolers, because all the supply chains, because of the hurricane and no power, everything had gone to crap. And so we were really glad to have what we had. So your attitude changes when everything is took away from you, and you just like, man, I got a fresh peach that made it through, and you eat that sucker and it's all juicy and good, and you're so glad you had that peach, and it's like that. You are so grateful for what you do have and however you make do. But that's the thing. No matter what's coming up, the spirits keep telling me, tell folks, learn how to adapt and quit freaking out. Just learn how to roll with the punches, because there's going to be, we're going to still have weird stuff happening in the future. It ain't going to go away. In my 70 years, there's been all kinds of stuff, from Vietnam War and protest and Martin Luther King and all them folks being killed and shot at, and I, the world is what it is. So learn to adapt to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well,
And keep
well
your damn
said.
head down.
Yes, absolutely. I love it. I love it. Very good wisdom. Very good wisdom. I learned something tonight that about wisdom and knowledge. And knowledge is stuff that you learn and remember. And it's about and wisdom is that gut feeling and using your experiences necessarily isn't knowledge. You can be as smart as a whip, but if you don't have wisdom, you could be dumb as a box of rocks.
That's what I was just thinking. And the other day I was having a meditation session, and I wanted to do a video at the time, and the computer messed up. And it's on that same thing. It's like survival is education. And if you don't know how to do something, then your survival is going to be limited. That's just all there is to it. If you don't know how to, and all these people, learn how to strike a fire, survival, light a fire. Yeah, okay. I got matches all over the place and lighters galore, but survival in the wilderness, okie dokie. But how to survive in your own house, how to survive in your own neighborhood. Do you know what's in your neighborhood? Do you know what's within a mile of your house? Can you go out and forage for food? Do you even know that if there's anything to forage? How would you do it? How would you live on what you've already got in your house? Would you know how to ration? There are people who the lights would go out, they still cook 3 meals a day. And I was like, you dumbass. You can't get by with 1 or 2 for a couple of days, Oh, well, we ran out of food after the first day. Well, how many meals did you? Well, we all had a big breakfast and we all had this for lunch. And I was like,
yeah. Well, I mean, if you know the power's coming on, everything's good. But like you said, if you know things are going to shit, you start rationing right away.
Yeah, there are people that I have talked to who I've said, so you've got a canteen of water, and that canteen's got to last you 2 days. You just know this. So what do you do? Do you take little sips, or do you take big gulps and then you run out? Which do you do? And there are people who are like, well, I'm thirsty, blah, 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 and then they're out of water.
Yeah.
And for me, I've learned how to sip,
Yes.
and a little bit of water, rinse your mouth out, swallow it, and that canteen will last you 2 days, right. But it's your willpower, and it's your willing to adapt, and it's your willingness to overcome the body and go, hey, look, you can't go. This is all we got, dude. We got to nurse this thing,
Nurse it out.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
so learn how to adapt, my friends.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Go tune in to David. He'll be coming on in a little while. He's going to get himself a cup of coffee, smoke a cigarette, get his stuff set up, and you can join him on his channel. And with that, remember, go out and do something nice for your neighbor, somebody at the store, somewhere else. Wave to somebody, smile at somebody, pass along the good cheer. And remember, be prepared. Don't be scared. And with that, everyone, go out and be the frequency you want to receive. I love you all.
We
Peace,
love
everybody.
You. Bye.